Today, we're joined by our panelists of experts who will be sharing their insights and experiences on the latest personalisation and connected experience opportunities and challenges, and to brainstorm solutions to common customer experience issues. Please do listen, learn, connect, and then from there, we will help you as a community. So without further ado, let's deep dive into today's forum. Customer experience is, we think, and I'm sure you agree, the battleground for competitive advantage. In a highly interconnected world, with the widespread adoption of IoT, so the Internet of Things, and rapid developments in AI, consumers have come to expect seamless digital interactions in their daily lives. Alongside these developments, a growing interest of immersive experiences and augmented reality, AR, is blurring physical and digital experiences, creating new challenges and opportunities to engage consumers. This week was a big one for AI. On Monday, the Prime Minister announced his government's AI plan and spoke of mainlining AI into the veins of the entire nation. Advances in technology, including AI, are enabling organizations to access a range of consumer data and use it to create personalized experiences. However, delivering personalized and connected experiences at scale is highly challenging, and many organizations struggle with data quality and integration issues, such as data silos, duplications, or outdatedness. And with the advent of AI, there are additional concerns about data privacy and ethics. This morning, we're going to hear from Chief Disruptor members from a variety of sectors who will share their experiences in delivering customer experience and provide some strategies and guidance for success. I'd like to welcome Nikolina and Supriya to this morning, and thank you very much indeed for your time. We're going to do some introductions to start, and then a little bit about yourselves and indeed your role or roles to date. So I'm going to hand over first of all to Nikolina, just to give us a sense of all of her experiences and the industries that she's been in. Over to you, Nikolina. Thank you.
Thank you. So Nikolina Glamoclija, I've been working on as a head of digital strategy and customer propositions and products in LV General Insurance or Allianz. So as such, for the last almost 7 years, I've worked on different propositions, bringing to market digital first insurance proposition flow, now named Allianz. Also bringing to market EV ecosystem of products and services for EV drivers, so you can get car insurance as well as home charging and public charging, and as of late also solar. And in the last year and a half, I worked on different strategies for motor, home, and travel insurance, which I've been running for the last 6 months. Before that, I came from different industries, so bringing in experience from Microsoft, Vodafone Telecoms, as well as Reuters and B2B. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So a huge amount of experience, and thank you so much for all your support over the years. I'm going to come to Supriya next. Supriya, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Emma. So I'm Supriya. My background has mainly been in strategy consulting across consumer and retail, various breadth of industry within consumer, food, non-food, and different categories, and same within retail. Recently, so post-consulting career, I joined Reckitt as their Global Growth Strategy Director, so looked at it from a brand-in perspective or brand-out perspective, so to say. And then until recently, I was the Chief Strategy and Transformation Director for Holland and Barrett, which is the health and wellness retailer on the high street, which potentially everyone is aware of. So yeah, that's my background. Happy to be here and happy to contribute.
Thank you very much indeed. And Martin, good morning to you, a long-standing member again. Thank you very much for joining us. An introduction and a little bit about your background in the industries you've worked in, please. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Apologies for joining a little late there. So Martin Jimmick, I work at Whitbread, which for many might think we still brew beer. Unfortunately, we don't anymore. We're all hotels and restaurants these days. So Premier Inn would be our largest brand. I look after the infosec team there, which is quite diverse. We're quite global these days, actually stretching the Premier Inn brand across Europe. Rapidly expanding in Germany at the moment, which is quite exciting. have previous experience across many different industries, charities, finance, government. So quite a mixed sort of history there.
Thank you. So lucky to have you all, because as you say, not only have you been both within the industries across many of those in the UK, but also, and more broadly, but also then on the side of consulting and into some of the big tech and so on. So great amount of insight that we'll have today. Thank you very much indeed. So question to all of you, what are the latest trends that are disrupting customer experience and how are they affecting your industries? Supriya, can I come to you first, please?
Sure. So the consumer within the sort of retail business is changing, right? So most of the consumers, if there's a prediction by 2040, about 40% of consumers are going to be Gen Zs, Gen Alphas, and Gen Betas, as they call them, which is very different from today's consumer. The way they shop, how they connect with brands, what they're looking for, the amount of patience they have to shop. And how they get influenced. It's completely different from today's consumer. So the likes of TikTok, as of this morning's news, TikTok will be banned from the US as of Sunday. So the question is, okay, what's the next sort of social media that people are reverting to? And there's a new app called Red Dot that a lot of the US consumers are downloading. So again, it's no more the traditional sort of word of mouth advertising on TV campaigns, or you see some kind of advertising on a billboard, etc., which was the traditional consumer and how they got influenced. In terms of brands, if you look at it, consumers want specialized niche brands that they resonate from a value perspective with the brand, and it's made for them. So they want to feel special. They want that brand to talk to them. They want to be able to feel proud when they actually put up the brand or the brand that they're using in the social community. And there's a pride factor there, right? That they're associated with this niche special brand and want to feel special. And I think from a delivery perspective, they want it where they want it. Consumers do not see any difference between store and digital these days, given that most of the consumers are digital savvy. So they want D2C brands, there's quick logistics, which is 10-minute delivery, etc. So you can imagine the attention span of the consumer has changed multifold, where before they were willing to wait for, when Amazon started, it was 4 to 6 business days, and now a consumer doesn't want to wait for more than 10 minutes, and they want it, or if they're passing a store, they want to be able to order it and actually collect it into store. I think the whole sort of thought process has completely changed from the traditional consumer. So therefore, I think, and it's only going to get sort of lesser and lesser. Who knows, we might have, I don't know, 3-minute deliveries once the drones are sort of in effect. So again, there's a lot to do from a retail and a brand perspective for the next gen consumers.
Yeah, absolutely mind-boggling, isn't it? Where we're going and all those imaginations we had as children, what we wanted, suddenly our realities and more. Nikolina, what are you seeing? What are the trends? What's shaping it?
Well, customers really want everything now, like Supriya said, and the tech obviously is enabling that. So the expectations have been really managed by the big tech, who have enabled that, shopping from the sofa. In addition to Supriya's comments about Gen Z, we also have a growing old population. So we'll have a lot more people over 60, and that is also customer base we very much serve. So they may be less digitally savvy, although I wouldn't say they're not digitally savvy, because since COVID, I think everybody's been using digital media either to shop or to surf information, and they are expecting more assistance that goes over different channels, so digitally assisted assistance as well. So I think with Gen AI, with AI, which is obviously top of everybody's mind, customers are looking to actually get the best value and the best ease of doing business with companies.
Thank you, Nikolina, so much. Martin, obviously a sector, hospitality, a sector that was hit so hard during COVID. We're now 5 years on from COVID. If we were sort of looking at a crystal ball, looking 5 years forward, and look at what you feel the trends are taking place, what you know, what's grabbing us at the moment and what's going to take us forward.
Yeah, I think probably echoing some of the sentiments here. I think COVID was exceptional in terms of marking a real quick shift in our industry. What was typically very, very face-to-face engagements suddenly brought in the need for ordering or even paying at the table, or all those kind of technologies where we saw a massive digitalization of previous services. Interestingly, when COVID actually, when we all came back and we started seeing people face to face, some of the things that we actually delivered during those, and that's a really good example, is the paying at the table. It's almost gone backwards a little. You know, we've actually seen a sort of a little bit of a backward trend. However, saying that, the personalization, hyper personalization, is definitely what people are going to be wanting. We can see a gradual increase. We've recently launched a check-in online, early check-in online, and you can see that the generation is making a difference. You're seeing that definitely in the numbers, but we're seeing people wanting that experience, and that's going quite well for us so far.
Fantastic. And I think if we look at sort of, I've got two children, a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old, you know, look at those digital immersive experiences they just expect now, you know, that how do we get them? And then loyalty, that word that we talked about for generations and generations, and the companies that we know that are 300 plus years old, you know, do we retain that loyalty? What's that look like in financial services, retail, and so on? So some big changes ahead, and it's interesting to see that there are some things that still matter that maybe are sort of what we might consider more old school or something that we did in the past. So what do today's customers want? Maybe they are all wanting completely different things. Are they harder to please? How do you go about making sure you cater to all your customers? I spoke to another member recently, actually at the dinner that Supriya and Nikolina were at as well. And they were talking about the fact that they had to look after every single generation from, you know, a 3-year-old all the way through to a 93-year-old. How can we get this right? What do you do? Martin, can we start with you, and perhaps you can tell us a little bit how you're seeing the manifestation of different demographics at the Premier, and you know, how you look at those room strategies, how you look at face-to-face strategies, and so on. So, and how can you ultimately serve a single customer? So over to you on your thoughts on that, please, Martin.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, customer satisfaction for us at Premier, absolutely paramount. It's the biggest thing for us. You know, it's something that we really regard, and the biggest feedback we actually get quite strongly is that Premier Inn does exceptionally well against the competition because of the staff. So the one thing that we know straight away, even across demographics, is by taking that almost that physical piece away, it would effectively damage the brand as we know it. So that's something that whatever we do with technology, that's paramount. That will not disappear. But of course, it does. You know, people's journeys, people's things of how they want to interact will change. So what we are very careful of is actually looking at the different channels, understanding those different channels, the different customer journeys, and we are beginning to sort of prepare. Now, actually, some of the things that we are looking at is, and it's funny, I was on a call yesterday, is actually how can we use technology to almost work out, and it's going to sound bad, which bucket that customer might fit into, and maybe can we use technology to, and if that demographic predominantly uses this customer journey, can we take them as a default down that customer journey, because that probably feels the most appropriate, rather than trying to do a blanket approach to try and shift every customer onto a new technology which actually they may not like. So it's almost like that, to a certain degree, that hyper personalization and dropping them in the most appropriate bucket for their interaction. It may not be right, and there'll always be sort of things where we will have to give them all options, regardless of what sort of drop zone they land in. But it's a way of us trying to aim what we feel is the most appropriate sort of journey for that demographic.
Thank you so much. And it's interesting, isn't it? We look at where we were 5 years ago and everyone's understanding about how their data is being used and how they would suddenly get push notifications or algorithms were sending them certain things.
Yes.
Interesting to see, I think we all feel and our customers feel much more aware now of what's going on with their data and the algorithms and all the rest of it, that we can come on to a little bit later. Nikolina, on the note that Martin was just talking about there, you told a story in our rehearsal call about your parents' issue at the airport recently, which feels relevant to this, and maybe you'd like to share that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so recently I obviously parents came to visit for Christmas, and my brother helped them to check them in, so they had passes on their phones. They arrived at the airport and showed their passes and asked, "Can we get assistance now to check in our our luggage?" And the lady helped them, but she said, "This is the last time we'll actually have human assistance at the airport. Next time you come, there won't be this help provided." So we really need to think how they decided really not to travel again because I think it's just too much effort for them to even think. I think the phones can go wrong. I think my dad locked the phone in the meantime. It all resolved itself fine, but I think, you know, we have different customers with different abilities as well. So we do need to take into consideration what channel and what assistance we need to provide them, or make it so simple that it is really no-brainer, because it will create additional effort or exclude even people from doing the basic things.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was interesting. I remember reading something very recently by an influencer who decided to give real commentary on her local supermarket and the fact that we were losing humans, and it was part of the supermarket was a place for the community, for those that were older, maybe who were alone, who were frightened and so on. And actually suddenly they were losing the humans, losing the interaction. But as you say, the technology was working for some, but not necessarily working for others. And how do we try and get that right? In the area of insurance, forgive me, which includes motorhome and travel insurance, so on for you, Nikolina, how does your value proposition shift between your customers from sort of price value, peace of mind, convenience, ease of doing business, and so on? How does that work in the insurance space?
Yeah, obviously, the key is to reduce effort on people, because sometimes I think with some work I was doing some years ago, people found it harder to kind of even answer insurance questions than doing GCSEs, because they're so big, and it took them 30 minutes to 60 minutes. So how do we, one is understand what do they actually need, and I think we have lots of data and we have lots of enrichments that are probably much more accurate than, I don't know, if you ask somebody what kind of lock do you have on your house, and you have to be technical expert to explain that. So first of all, using data smartly to actually enable that ease and provide more accurate cover for the specificities you need, really. So that personalization, because that is what people want. They don't want they want peace of mind that they're covered for what they need. Yeah. Secondly, then, is how do you make sure then that they only pay for what they need as well, so you don't overload it, because that is again where they see the value. People, I think, market is quite price competitive, but people really look for that value more than just the cheapest brand. So that's not really the truth. And obviously the services you provide. So as we mentioned, as Martin already mentioned, there are different people with different abilities, different vulnerabilities and different needs. So how do we make sure that we use that technology to actually ease that? So remove that effort from kind of low value transactional elements that are not needed, and provide additional assistance that also tech provides a switch today, so that we can be more proactive too. So if there is in travel or in home, we have lots of climate change today as well, with lots of storms coming that will impact your travel plans or your house or your car. So how can we predict this and make it easier and make sure that people are actually protected? So from pricing through the servicing and claims, and then also, I guess the key moment of truth in insurance is those claims. So when something happens, so how do we actually make sure that those are done at speed and at accuracy that customer needs, because that will obviously impact the satisfaction.
Absolutely. Thank you very much indeed. Supriya, can you tell us a little bit about the health and well-being marketplace and how Holland and Barrett segmented the market and addressed the challenge of appealing to the younger buyers? Certainly, when I used to go to Holland and Barrett on my high street in Putney in London, the client base was not those younger buyers. But clearly that's been a focus and it's been working effectively. Would you just bring that to life for us, please?
Yeah, sure. Actually, you're right. The main customer for Holland and Barrett is 30, 35 and above, so to say. So it is one of the challenges that Holland and Barrett went through around attracting younger customers, because actually the younger customers are able to just search for a lot of the stuff online on Amazon, which is the biggest competitor, and just buy because there's a plethora of choices available. But the way to approach it, or the way we approached it, was really understanding the customer beyond what they do in their life, beyond shopping your category. So it's not just about health and wellness, but who are they? Who are they really as a person? And really creating those customer personas to then understand, okay, well, there are people who are digitally savvy or digital first, versus they would like to come to a store and get some advice and help from our colleagues to understand what is it that they need to take. They don't want to take like 15 additional pills. So actually, what might be sort of the way to optimize that? And it's really connecting those experiences, as we call phygital. So bringing the physical experience online, but the online experience within stores with some digital elements as well. So some like tangible examples are having QR codes next to some of the vitamins or minerals. And actually, it's great for people who don't want to interact with somebody and they just want to scan a QR code and look at, the provenance, what it does, etc., and get all the information. But for people who do want to get some advice, actually, the store colleagues are trained on CQC. So they are able to advise you on what is sort of like based on your needs, like what are the vitamins or supplements that you might need or might help you with your health, right? So there's multiple ways of doing that. Another thing that Holland and Barrett launched was the self-testing kits. So actually, you're able to now go prick yourself, send your blood samples into a lab, and then bring the results back into Holland and Barrett, and again get some advice very specifically targeted to yourself, which is quite data-based in terms of what might be the deficiencies and kind of how do you want to resolve them. So there are multiple trials around, how we can attract younger customers. But again, it's been a challenge because you can't stock every brand available online. And now the D2C brands that are available on Instagram, TikTok, etc., are so easy. With 3 clicks, you're able to purchase that brand. And that's something to learn from those brands in terms of how they operate in such a nimble and an agile way. So yeah, it's still work in progress, but I think, there are multiple trials going on to kind of see, how do you cater to every type of customer that comes to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's really interesting in terms of that, go in, actually either do you want to talk to them or do you not want to talk to that person at the desk. Indeed, as you say, can you then send that sample off and really start to look after your health? Some really interesting techniques there. Could you also share a little bit about the results of the Golden Q report and the implications for listeners?
Yeah, so the golden quarter wasn't exactly what was expected, right? Because I think, there's a cost of living, etc. So just overall retail did not do as well as expected within the golden quarter, which was a large concern for most retailers. In terms of if we look at why that was the case, actually, if you look at some of the trends, most of the consumers actually shopped online versus going into store. So that has started questioning sort of, do you really need that kind of real estate on the high street, or actually does the real estate on the high street need to be upgraded with technology advances in terms of bringing that phygital or the digital element into the store? So again, an example of that Holland and Barrett did really well was getting all the colleagues with iPads, and then the checkout is quite simple. So if you need any information around a product, etc., they're able to quickly look through the iPad and kind of provide that. So there are multiple sort of tools being put in stores, but most of the consumers, you know, due to other economic conditions, did not shop as much as was expected. There is a potential, it's potentially also because actually the Black Friday sales is where most consumers shop. So therefore, you know, towards the Christmas end, actually only the ones that wanted to do last minute Christmas shopping shop. So yeah, it's been quite soft compared to last couple of years, which has put a lot of retailers questioning things around their real estate and what do we do around the real estate where you've got long-term leases. So yeah, you'll see a lot of either high street stores either shutting down, or you'll start seeing a lot of technology enablement within the stores, and you'll start seeing a lot of upgrades and refits within the stores as well, which are more catered towards sort of the younger population.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you add in a budget at the end
Yeah.
of last year, which then had huge implications, particularly for retail, hospitality, every sector.
Exactly.
But, you know, human costs, as we know, are so high in their own right. How do you know what your customers want? And what are the tools or practices that you put into place to discover more about your different customer preferences? Martin, a lot to do when you have customers coming from all over the world into the Premier Inns. You know, you've got every age group and so on. How do you actually understand what they need, and what are the tools and practices that you put into place to discover those preferences? Real challenge.
Yeah, it is absolutely, and we've been using some of the more sort of, I suppose, the more modern techniques, the sort of sentiment monitoring all the way through to surveying, but actually to be honest, that you can't beat the whole what we still utilize this today, and we bring them in, call them labs. I'm not too sure why. I think it's got a historic name, but in reality it's like an invite into the hotel, and we ask them, and quite often that could be on a incentivized as well, sort of like, so you get a free stay as part of the whole experience, and then we go through that customer experience and what they like, what they don't like, so we get that real sort of tangible feedback. But we are, I think the team are doing an exceptional job at this at the moment, aligning a lot of those back to the customer journey. So it's sort of almost very much a case of, again, understanding that demographics and understanding maybe which journey that we're looking for that feedback on.
Real challenge, isn't it? Nikolina,
Yeah.
I know that you use user insights, data analytics and AI-based insights to capture in the moment behavioral analytics. Can you tell us a bit more about how you use those?
Yeah, so we use a lot of data and just journey tracking to actually understand where customers are stuck, or so rather than surveying, which is great to get verbatim what they actually think of your service, to actually see what they wouldn't be able to express, where they got stuck, and how to do, as well as A/B testing to actually optimize our journeys. Also, when I do the in terms of doing the new propositions before we actually put something in place, to understand, I've used some of the new kind of technologies like Street Bees, for example. So they use in the moment capture. So rather than asking you, would you like this or that, I think their example when they were selling me the service was, you know, most people, when you look at ads, people eating ice cream on a sunny day, actually reality is people are in the dark room watching TV and everything's slobbering all over them. So this is really what you're selling. And so it is capturing in the moment. So for example, when we were doing EV proposition, is like, how do people actually charge and move around the country, and they would capture their experiences in the moment. And this is how we could actually design the service and the products much better.
Yeah, thank you so much. The days of just talking about footfall have changed very dramatically, haven't they? I remember even just sort of 5-7 years ago, we all talked about footfall and we could all get our dots around the country or into buildings or shopping malls, and suddenly we're in a very different place to that. So thank you for that. Supriya, you said that younger people aren't scared about sharing their data with organizations. This must give a rich seam of data to mine from multiple sources. How have you done this, and how do you make the most out of that data?
I think that is the biggest challenge, right? You have all the data on who are your consumers, where they shop, how they shop, etc. I think the biggest challenge is how do you connect that data in the physical world to the digital world? And that I think is the largest challenge for any retailer around connecting that data and then creating that personalized experience for the person out of that. There has been debates around, can you really personalize at scale? It's a question mark. I don't think there's been a retailer currently across the world who's been able to do that. So unless you're talking about luxury retailers, but then, they kind of have very human sort of salesperson catering to each customer. So it is, while Gen Zs or younger consumers are willing to share the data, I think it's just such a plethora of data. It's how do you connect? And also the brand loyalty is diminishing over time because there's so much choice, and every day I think there's like 30 or 40 brands launched within the health and wellness or beauty space. So if you look at that stat, I mean, as a retailer, you can't really stock every brand. If you look at marketplaces, they are expensive to run, but of course they have the ability to cater to every brand that's out there. And it's the easiest way to kind of list your brand and get it out there. But running a marketplace isn't exactly cost effective. So I think it's a big conundrum around operation costs versus catering to customers for every little brand that's out there. I think retailers have to be choiceful by understanding sort of which are the big trending brands or which make sense and have an ethos that resonates with your own brand to be able to then stock them. And then, of course, there are operational challenges, etc., that come along with it. So yeah, I mean, while you've got the data, I think the big challenge is connecting it and then being very choiceful around what is it that you want to be and cater to your different consumers.
Thank you so much. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because there's so many types of data, as we all know. Yeah. Ironically, we can sometimes say that we have limited data, even though the plethora is absolutely huge. So it's getting that balance. Thank you very much. Let's deep dive a bit more into how you're using AI and Gen AI solutions to help you understand and engage with your customers. Nikolina, I know that you're doing some really interesting things across chatbots and so on. Will you take us sort of into that world of how you're now using AI and Gen AI, please?
So I think the key for AI has been around, and machine learning has been around for a while, and it's powering pretty much all the key decisions from from pricing through claims and so on. With Gen AI, it's still also early days, I would say, because obviously everything depends on data quality and and how we actually work with it. So I think that it would be very useful in terms of how do we empower our agents, first of all, to help resolve customer queries and train it on internal as well as on some documents of insurance, for example, where we can see how the context how to make it easier for customers to understand that. But I think first use cases should be internal, to look at, how can we make sure that those things are accurate, especially in highly regulated industries, before we can actually expose it to the customers.
Thank you so much. And I think that hype we had with, ChatGPT and then the iterations and everyone in organizations wanting to get involved, customers getting involved and so on, it's been a real journey. I think we're sort of starting to see that slight deflation in terms of what it's about, and actually when it comes to the business and the impact to bring it into the business, what's it look like? So thank you. Martin, where are you using AI and what's the purpose and goal for that?
So we've started very, I suppose, tentatively, very concerned about, so obviously the privacy concerns, implications of those initially, but we know it's going to affect our industry in quite a big way. Some of the things that we have been doing is actually using technology that has been around in retail for quite some time, especially on the physical estate, where you're using those CCTV feeds, understanding flows, and then actually applying AI over the top of that to sort of actually get a better understanding of people moving around a hotel. That's been really, really interesting, and has actually prompted us to, in 2 hotels, actually put a sofa and a call pod in, because we actually were able to work out that people were taking calls, private calls, or wanted a quiet space. And so they were using the stairwell in a hotel for that purpose. And the feedback from that alone was absolutely fantastic, just that we were providing a little bit of comfort. So that's just a very simple way, but we are looking at other engagements and looking at how we can empower the agent far better in answering the customer's questions.
And it's interesting, isn't it? The spaces that were, say, a bookshop have now become the coffee shop, and the blending of different places has come through. And I think we are having to listen and understand all the time, and then look at obviously how different generations are interacting. Nikolina and Martin, I know that you had some chatbot stories that sort of had gone horribly wrong. Would you share just some of those so that we sort of get a sense of, yes, chatbots could be an answer, but they're not always the answer, Nikolina?
Well, I guess in over the many years, there's been a lot of, to be honest, I haven't seen really a chatbot that works very well, and usually takes you around the loop, I think, which is the very frustrating. I think all of us had a lot of experiences with those, especially when you go and try to get help. So I think where most use for me personally has been in implementation has been to actually route customer to the appropriate channel, and that's been the better use case than actually trying to answer some of the questions that go back in the loop. So how do you actually speed up that process to actually get customer to where they want to be? Because lots of times, I mean, even if you go on a banking site or and everybody's doing chatbots, and you can't get to the right answer, you can't get to the right person, so that's most frustrating. So just using it to actually route it to the right, before we can actually get that intelligence, hopefully now with ability to process a lot more content and a lot more data, a lot faster. It will come with time, but yeah.
I do get it right. Thank you. Martin, so there were some examples of where, you know, we
Yeah,
are
well, yes, yeah, we did see an interesting one in our industry. It was actually an Asian hospitality company had used a recent sort of AI-enabled chatbot and was trying to get that better customer engagement through it. But a frustrated customer ended up swearing at the chatbot, and the way that the AI-enabled chatbots our function is very much around the mimicking. That's a natural behavior for them, so they'll try and mimic the sort of discussion and the customer and the way the customer is asking the question. So the chatbot ended up squaring back at the customer. This actually it just escalated. It was hilarious because the customer then swore back even more. So the chatbot then just escalated as well. You can see this long history of profanity that just got bigger and bigger. So yeah, it amusing, but in a wrong way.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much. How transformational will AI or Gen AI, I should say, be to your industries, and what are your use cases for Gen AI so far? Nikolina, can I come to you? So transformational opportunities and use cases for Gen AI.
Yeah, I think we've already kind of covered a little bit, but I think it's key to help our agents to resolve customer queries quicker. I think in the first instance. Secondly, also how can we use it to enable documentation and make it more readable, some content. Obviously, I work in a highly regulated industry, so it's going to take a while to actually get all the. You still need human effort to to actually review it on top of the air, but also doing just the research and summaries of the documents and the research as well, or even processing that data or feedback from customers. We can do it much faster running it through Gen AI, and then you know, with the help of my expert colleagues, we can actually come up with solution much faster. So if I am looking at customer verbatim, for example, or the research I was recently doing with my research insights team, they could process the whole survey in one day, what used to take a couple weeks maybe, you know, to get the results, process them, and then make sense out of them. So we could do that in one day now with the help of technology.
And in terms of that, is it for you, is it a combination, do you think, of ML and Gen AI, or where do you think it sits?
It is, because obviously Gen AI doesn't work very well with with numbers at all. So I think there's difference. So obviously you use all the data and numbers through AI and machine learning. So our we work a lot. That's much more advanced, I would say, than the content. I think content we also can work with a lot more creative stuff, where you can actually reduce cost of campaigns to actually create stuff. Again, you got to be careful what you're putting out there. And I know there's a lot of we have done a lot of kind of work also, yeah, with the electric cars and stuff, to actually again reduce cost of effort that you needed to agency before, and speed to market with the new campaigns. But again, you need that human interaction. So it's a human and machine working together really to come up with a much faster solution.
Yeah, we haven't lost it yet. Martin, just some quick thoughts from you in terms of how the use cases for Gen AI within your industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Initially, when we first started looking at it, we actually struggled a little and took a little bit of time to really get the thought process going. For us, very much about empowering the agent to support the customer better, rather than putting it right out customer facing. Our biggest area that we're focusing on the moment is operational efficiency. I think there's a huge amount of potential there. And even give you a tiny little example of something where we're looking at is that ability to be able to, even in a hotel space, know when customers left the room, so we can clean it quicker, clean it more efficiently with robotics and AI. So we actually have robot hoovers and toilet cleaners at the moment within the hotels under trial, so that they can almost be sent in automatically, enhancing that speed, or releasing that room quickly back, so we can then open it up for the customer and effectively get more money from it. So there's an operational efficiency and revenue gain from using it that way.
Good, fantastic. Thank you. Supriya, I know that you feel AI is most powerful for studying the buying power and behaviors of customers and using this to boost sales through cross-selling and upselling. Can you tell us a bit more about how that's worked and the results of this initiative? So sort of more on the bundle offers and other things, please.
Yeah, so looking at sort of behaviors of customers, what AI is able to do very quickly is kind of collate that data across multiple sources and almost try to create like a predictive trend, where you're able to now predict, okay, if a customer is buying X, what else are they buying with that within the basket, and almost creating that predictive model, where you are then able to create product placement strategies, etc., for the customer and actually drive sales uplift from that perspective. There's actually two other very interesting use cases within the industry that I've seen. One is around pricing, where there is a tool developed around, where the AI is able to actually look at your competitive pricing for that product across the set of competitors that you determine. And you're almost able to kind of track that pricing, and it can then, based on learning and the trends, it can predict what the right pricing for that product could be. So it's very interesting for retailers when they're about to run like markdowns or sales or Black Friday, and when they should run the Black Friday event, etc., to really, help model the prediction of their sales based on their customer data and then overlaid with the competitors as well.
Sure.
I think the other ones are the other one that I've seen that's been quite helpful is on the campaigns, as Nikolina mentioned, which is where you want to almost customize the campaign to a specific cultural context, right? So it's almost like the cost of creating those campaigns and running it is actually reduced significantly, because AI is able to create the same campaign in the language, in the context, with the right images, etc. But definitely there's a human element that's required to supervise that to ensure the regulatory environment is complied with. But that's, that's kind of, essentially sped up the creation and the content creation of the campaigns at a, lightning speed, because now you're able to create one campaign and almost like create that campaign globally with just using a tool. To me, those are two very fascinating examples that are sort of in the pipeline now to be released.
Absolutely. And it sort of takes us back to almost those days of studying A-level economics or anything else, that supply and demand, that speed at which they're turning it. And it's not taking that time anymore. We're looking at the markets more broadly. So what are the challenges of delivering these highly personalized, hyper-connected experiences at scale? Nikolina, you mentioned data organization silos and legacy systems when we chatted before, and I think you made the comment in our rehearsal call that it would just be easy to start from scratch. On top of that, you're obviously operating in a highly regulated industry sector, insurance, as you'd said. Can you tell us a bit more about these challenges that you're facing?
Yeah, I think most of the companies have I guess most of established companies have that legacy issue. So where you have lots of different legacy systems, barriers and data silos, so things don't talk to each other to actually enable that. Also, we have obviously a regulatory issue where you can't just the success depends on the quantity and quality of the data. So you do almost need a production level data access to actually make most benefit out of, which is probably harder. But also there is a cultural issue. So it is easier to start from scratch, but then when you're starting from scratch, you obviously don't have a customer base and data quantity to do the same. So both sides needs to meet somewhere, but I think it's slowly happening. So it's key is to define the use cases and start small to actually be able then to scale where the use cases make sense. Yeah,
definitely. Thank you, Martin. If we think about scaling from prototype, as Nikolina just said, to enterprise wide, what are the inherent challenges that you've encountered in your sector?
I think the one thing that we certainly have seen is with AI coming along, obviously we've got a lot of teams very invested in looking at the technology, trying to understand, try and get that value out of that very siloed data. And we're certainly seeing sort of a lot of almost suggestion that we can create very small environments, try it out, close it down, sort of like those sort of areas, which is great. And we are learning, and those teams are learning from those. It does have a little but, though. We are already seeing a fair little heap of potentially tech debt building up. So there's almost a little bit of, I think those sort of trial it and see kind of things are great, but it does come with a little warning where you might actually be creating a little bit of a headache along the journey as well.
Absolutely. So Supriya, coming to you, so what are the ways organizations can strengthen the quality and readiness of their data for Gen AI use cases? Because as we know, it needs to be clean, it needs to make sense. Insight is only as good as your data. So what do you feel some of the ways are that we need to strengthen that quality and readiness?
I mean, I think you need that human intervention at this point, right? Because it's a system cannot do it, because a human needs to kind of almost intervene and ensure that the data quality is right, the sources are right. And what's being used is actually clean and has a meaningful sense, right? So yeah, there is no magic tool to it. There's of course data needs to make sense, so therefore a human has to look at it. I think the one way to do it is, almost dividing your consumers into cohorts, right? So you've got your high value customers, which is the ones that you essentially want to make sure that you cater to, and really taking that cohort as a pilot and understanding their behavior really well. And at least if you can show a pilot sort of case study around the success on how you're able to either drive sales or drive loyalty, etc., then you can almost start replicating that model across like all your consumers. And you're still going to have consumers that are not going to be loyal to you because they come into your stores or your website to shop, once in a while, and that's okay. Similarly, with grocery retailers, there's a main grocer that you shop at, and then you've got a top-up store, because it's close to your house, etc. So again, it's just really understanding the consumer beyond, I think, how they shop in your category. So who are they as a person? What do they actually do? And how many points can you intervene within their sort of lifestyle to cater to them? Or even if it's not pushing sales, but more information and data where they do feel connected to your brand and feel like, oh, okay, well, this brand provided me this information. They're not really trying to sell something to me. And that also kind of brings them and draws them back to your brand to start looking at, potential products, etc. So an example is, even if it was around, let's say, a meditation, right? I mean, Holland and Barrett does not sell meditation as an example, but if there are little nudges that the consumer can get around how meditation could help, etc., actually there's no push sales here, but that reminds them of the brand, that, oh, this brand actually did something for my holistic well-being. And actually you automatically start associating the brand with the holistic well-being. So there's different ways to sort of nudge the consumer, but of course you have to understand them as a person. You've got to make sure that you've got the right data. You don't want to push the wrong things on the wrong type of consumer, because that can backfire quite quickly.
Absolutely. Thank you very much indeed. These sessions, these forums that we run, and indeed everything we do when it comes to our activities at Chief Disruptor, is all about actionable insights. It's about strategies, it's about solutions. So let's turn the conversation in the last couple of minutes to that. How do we overcome those challenges? And certainly we found in our research that the ways leaders talk about the goals and process of transformation has had a profound influence on customers. Just as we sort of start to close in the next 6 minutes or so, there are a large range of customer engagement metrics out there, ranging from net promoter scores to churn to social media engagement metrics. How are you measuring customer engagement, and have you been able to demonstrate the success of your customer engagement initiatives? Can I just briefly come to all of you for just quick thoughts on that before we move on to the next question? Martin, over to you. How are you doing? How are you actually measuring that engagement and the success?
I think that is very much across many different tools, many different channels. Very sort of, it's becoming a very difficult process to pull all of those and aggregate it all together. But it's almost throwing a net as wide as very possible to get as much of that in active feedback as possible. So I think the thing is many different approaches at the moment for us.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. And coming to you, Nikolina, sort of if we link sort of measuring customer engagement and demonstrating success, and also looking at AI, and has that helped you track customer engagement? Has it helped you test, learn, iterate your programs? Where have you been on that journey? Has it done the things it needed to do for you?
So certainly it's a journey. We are not at the destination yet. So I mean, but tracking various all of the elements from the purchasing through the servicing and claims is key, and then relating that data. So obviously we track very much NPS, as well as the operational efficiencies and productivity, as well as the revenues and sales, which is the ultimate. But the ultimate grail is obviously how do you actually then transfer that and understand the customer value model and the lifetime value model, and which is real, I think, evidence of that loyalty satisfaction, as well as the, and I think in most organizations I've been, it's really, that's been very difficult to actually achieve. So there are various ways, but if we can actually pull things together, piece together to create that experience that seems seamless, and then understand where the gaps are internally to work towards that is key.
Thank you so much. For you, Supriya, in terms of AI tracking customer engagement, has it helped you test, learn, iterate your marketing programs?
Well, we haven't really, I mean, like Nikolina said, we are also on we've been on a journey. We haven't reached the destination, but of course the typical metrics, that pretty much every retailer uses, NPS, increase in sales, looking at high value customer, and what the increase in value is, etc. So these are typically the metrics. And now there's a new metric in the last couple of years that has kind of cropped up around customer lifetime value. But the truth is that actually no one's been able to define that, because what is that value and what is that lifetime? You can't really tell. Is it birth to death? And that's quite different for everyone. Is it at a certain, for health and wellness, of course, you typically start engaging around 16 to 18 years old when you become an adult, and then kind of start your journey there. But again, how long do you track? What if the customer leaves you, until when do you track? So I think it's a hard metric, and from my discussions with multiple retail leaders, nobody's been able to define that. So there are loads of retailers that put an arbitrary value to say the last 12 months, the last 2 years, etc. And it's really dependent on how they are tracking their own customers. So yeah, that's an interesting one to see what that lifetime is. At Holland and Barrett, because it's a health and wellness company, of course, you want to look at one of the purposes, adding quality years to life, but that's a very hard metric to track. So there's a rethinking around that as well. What is quality and how many years and from when, right? So again, it's similar to that customer lifetime value metric. So definitely, I think the impact measurement is going to be a tough one, but I think, as we evolve, we'll start to create maybe new metrics and start driving those.
Thank you very much indeed. So we like to finish all of our forums with the final tip or strategy from our panelists for members to take away to the office and hopefully put into practice straight away. So for all of you, as we're halfway through January 2025, what will be your customer engagement priorities for 2025? Where do you think our audience should focus their attention for maximum impact? I'm going to come to you first of all, Nikolina.
Well, for me, I think technology is means of achieving something, and I love it. So for me, it's always focus. How can I make my customer happy? How can I bring them value and convenience and reduce effort they have to do business with us?
Thank you so much indeed. Martin, over to you. What would be that key tip for the year?
Yeah, very, very much. I think our core push, empowering the agent, making sure that agent has absolutely everything they need to serve that customer in the quickest and shortest way possible.
Thank you so much. And Supriya, to you, your thoughts.
So my thoughts are your customer experience is only as good as your data. So your strategy should definitely leverage on the data. And so data is the key. The cleanliness, the authenticity of data is key to driving all of that.
Thank you very much indeed. So a huge thank you to you all, to Nikolina, to Supriya, and to Martin for an incredibly insightful panel discussion. And I think we could have talked for much longer. To our audience, thank you for joining us, but also to all of you for your ongoing commitment to Chief Disruptor community. We'll be posting the recording from today's forum on chiefdisruptor.com and also on our monthly newsletter, Chief Disruptor Insights, and our YouTube channel. Please feel free to share it with your colleagues and teams. Our next member activity is our Chief Disruptor Breakfast Club, Agile Leadership, Planning and Decision Making in a Complex Operating Environment. And that's on the 7th of February, an earlier start at 8:45 on a Friday. And a final reminder to download our latest report, Leadership Insights on Emerging Technologies and Transformation Strategies. Please do join us both in terms of reading that, but also at our forthcoming activities for the year. We look forward to seeing you at one of those very soon. A big thank you again to all of you, and indeed to a happy and successful 2025. Many thanks to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.